Okay, welcome back. We're going to go over this again, talking about the loss of biodiversity. Hopefully we might get most of this done in this PowerPoint or in this video. Again, HIPCO. These are the reasons we are losing biodiversity. Habitat degradation is by far the #1 reason we are losing biodiversity, but all the others have an impact as well. So we're going to go through each of these. I use HIPCO as a way to remind myself of the different ones. And I hope you will use it as well and memorize this. It will help you greatly remember all of these impacts. And probably besides water pollution, or pollution overall, air pollution, all the different types of pollution and global warming, this is probably one of the most important things that you are familiar with and comfortable with in the entire course. You have got to know about the loss of biodiversity and how that's happening. It's hugely important. I can't stress that enough. Okay, so habitat degradation. Degradation can be destruction, it can be decrease in quality, it can be a shrinking in size. There's all different things that fall under habitat degradation. We often talk about habitat fragmentation. If you put a road through the middle of a habitat, you just fragmented it. You made it into 2 smaller pieces. That's huge. So there's all different ways that this can happen. We can do this through roads or human development or agriculture and mining and cattle and all different ways. Anything that degrades the quality or changes the quality of the habitat, shrinks it in size, all of that stuff, all falls under habitat degradation. And habitat degradation is the #1 reason we are losing biodiversity across our planet. Shows you some things. There has been some increase in forests in some areas, but not a lot. A lot of areas have decreased. This doesn't show everything because it, of course, just shows the forest cover. The forest in some areas has grown back up because we've realized that our ways are not good. We can't be clear cutting, or we've moved our agriculture into other areas, so we're letting the forest come back in areas that used to be agricultural areas. Invasive species. What is an invasive species? Well, a native species is a species that is supposed to live there. It's historically lived there in that range or in that area for a very long time. If you have a species that's been introduced, it's from somewhere else. It can be called an alien species or an exotic species. It means it lives somewhere else, but now it lives here. Black buck, which is an antelope from Africa. They are actually an invasive or an exotic or alien species in Texas now. They were on ranches and they've gotten loose and they breed in the wild and they're everywhere. If you go down south, you find parrots. They're alien species. They are somebody's pet who got loose kind of thing. If they are an invasive species, and sometimes people use alien, exotic, and invasive interchangeably, but really what an invasive species is one of these alien or exotic species, but one that has a negative effect on the environment. We have alien species. Go look in your front yard. Probably every plant in your front yard is an alien or exotic species. But they stay in your front yard. They don't go anywhere. They don't cause any problems. Every once in a while we have invasive species. They are ones that will get loose kind of thing. And they will overpopulate and they will outcompete the native species and harm the native species. And this causes a negative impact on the environment because the invasive species, they don't have any natural predators in the environment. They don't have anything to keep their population under control. There's no little limit that will keep their population within control. Some examples are things like kudzu, which is a vine that's all over the South. It's actually working its way down this way. But if you ever go up to Alabama or Georgia and you see a plant that is covering and engulfing things, that's kudzu. And it will literally block out the light and kill other species. So that's bad. Our fire ants here are not native to Florida. They're from Africa. They came in shipping containers and stuff way back when and got introduced. And they outcompete our native ants. And they are nasty little suckers. And they bite and it hurts. And they do damage. They outcompete the native species. So invasive species are a very big deal. And we're going to talk about the cane toad on Thursday. Most invasive species have been accidentally introduced. Things like zebra mussels in the Great Lakes. the Australian pine here in Florida, cane toad in Australia, and we have the cane toad down south, and actually it's working its way up here, which is going to be of concern because they're highly poisonous and they'll kill your dog. Islands are very susceptible to invasive species. We have to be very careful because they're already such a small habitat. An island is very limited on its space and stuff, so if you get an invasive species in there, it can really devastate the island very quickly. Controlling invasive species is very expensive. You can do different things. You can do mechanical removal or control, which is basically physical control, literally going in and pulling the plant or trying to catch the animal. Biological, you can try using a predator or parasite. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of times you're introducing, again, another invasive species. So you want to be very careful if you do this because, again, you don't want to accidentally now have 2 invasive species in the area rather than 1 invasive species controlling the other. And that has happened in several times. And actually, that's how the cane toad got introduced to Australia. And we'll talk more about that later. Or you can do ecological. You can try to like set it on fire, set the area on fire and try to burn it out. That may be the greatest thing. It depends on what habitat it is and how long it's been since it burned and how big of an area you're talking about. But that's another possible way of controlling it. Okay, top picture is kudzu. That's that lovely vine that likes to grow and everything. The bottom picture is actually the zebra mussel, which is found in the Great Lakes. It's not native there. It actually came in the bilge water of boat or ships, and that's why we actually have new regulations with regards to bilge water. Ships that are empty carry water in the bottom of them to sit lower in the ocean so that they're more stable. They don't rock as much. But when you get close to shore and you're going to load stuff on, then you pump the bilge water out when you load your cargo. Well, that bilge water has plankton in it. It has all kinds of little baby larvae and stuff. And that's how these zebra mussels got introduced in the Great Lakes, was as larvae picked up in Africa, Europe area, and brought over here in the bottom of the boat. So now we have regulation that when boats come in and they need to dump their bilge water, they dump it further out in deeper water, and in deeper water it's less likely to like settle out and start an invasive species. But mussels, the zebra mussels, have really destroyed the Great Lakes. Okay, human population. Some people in their HIPCO don't only have 1 P for pollution. I put 2 for human population because the fact is human population increase. An increase in our population leads to all these other things. Leads to more, if you have more people, you need more land for more houses, and more schools and more roads. If you have more people, there's more likely of them introducing an invasive species. If you have more people, you're going to make more pollution. If you have more people, you're going to use more fossil fuels and you're going to release more carbon. And that's going to create climate change. And if you have more people, you have to feed them, so you're going to probably have more overharvesting. So anytime you talk about a human population increasing, it's going to result in a loss of biodiversity. And as long as you can make that connection, that's going to score you points. Okay, pollution. Well, of course, pollution destroys the habitat. It harms the habitat, and animals can absorb these acids and metals and all this kind of stuff and toxic stuff, and of course it can kill them. So there's some different types of things. Of course, we use pesticides, which are made to kill them. A lot of our pesticides are actually broad spectrum, which means they don't just kill ants, they kill any insect. And we spray them a lot. And so we don't just kill the ant, we kill the good things too. So that can be a very big deal. So lots and lots of pesticides out there. Actually, with Zika, they're doing a lot of spraying for mosquitoes, but that's also killing bees. And actually, a picture of the stop spraying for Zika kind of thing is on my Facebook page because we're doing more harm than good. Some of the other things we use or that are in there, endocrine disruptors. These are non-lethal effects that prevent or inhibit reproduction. Sometimes we use them intentionally. They're a type of pesticide that we can use that are out there. They work, but then they work on other things. And actually a lot of our medicines and stuff are also getting into waters and stuff, and they're causing problems. And we'll talk more about that when we get to water pollution. Excessive nutrients, of course, we've talked about this a little bit, but we'll really get into this when we get to water pollution. It can cause eutrophication in dead zones. Eutrophication, again, is when the lake goes all green because it has too much nutrients, and that actually ends up blocking out, because of the decomposing bacteria, ends up reducing the amount of oxygen in the area and creating dead zones where basically a lot of your fish and stuff can't survive. We have things like thermal pollution, which you might not think about, and that's when you release hot water. A lot of industry and nuclear power plants will release hot water. Water is coming from either cooling systems or from maybe they wash all the clothes in hot water in the industry or something like that. And they're dumping that, and a lot of animals can't deal with that really hot water, so it will kill them, at least in that small general area where they are dumping it. And that's what we find with our nuclear power plants. Okay, climate change. We're going to go into depth in climate change, to say the least, towards the end of the year. But climate change is one of the things that's decreasing biodiversity. And one of the primary concerns with this is as you change your temperature, you're changing temperature in a region and precipitation. So you're basically changing your biome, because your temperature and precipitation determine your climate. Your climate determines the plants, and that determines the biomes. So if you're changing that climate pattern, that temperature and precipitation, you are shifting your biomes. And this is totally called a biome shift. So you're shifting your biomes, and your biomes are actually shifting towards the poles. As things get warmer, your tropical area is kind of getting bigger, your temperate's moving towards the poles, and your polar region is shrinking because it has nowhere to go, which would be why we have the characteristic picture of the poor little polar bear dying, because his pole is decreasing. The Arctic is decreasing. There's hardly any ice up there anymore in the winter. He's having huge troubles. So climate change, and again, that will lead into, or we'll talk more about climate change in the end, but again, climate change is shifting the biomes, which is decreasing biodiversity, because a lot of those species cannot shift fast enough with the biomes, and that's a huge concern for us. Okay, overharvesting. This is hunting, fishing, logging, anything that we take from nature where we take too much. A lot of our logging, we take it way too much. We take it faster than the trees can be grown back, and that, of course, is a problem. And same with hunting and fishing. So a lot of animals have actually gone extinct due to overharvesting. Things like the dodo, giant sloth, mammal. By the way, did you know we had an American camel? Yes, we did, but they went extinct. The moa bird, passenger pigeon here in the United States, when the settlers first settled in the United States, they used to write that the passenger pigeon, there were so many of them that as they took off, they'd actually block out the sun and turn day to night kind of thing. And we literally hunted them to extinction because they were a very easy source of meat. Currently, we are hunting sharks, bluefin tuna, and marlin to extinction. A lot of our terrestrial animals, our land animals, we're pretty good at now about noticing that there's a problem there. They're also cuter. We usually have no problems saving the cute animals, but the ones that are not so ugly or we think are dangerous, things like sharks and fish, don't always get our priority. We harvest rare plants, birds, and coral reef organisms for private collections. Be very careful if you ever get a saltwater aquarium. Try to get things that are bred and done in captivity. Most clownfish now are bred in captivity, but a lot of animals are still caught in the wild. And for every one that's caught and makes it into a fish tank in captivity, there's probably 10 that died in transit or died when they were trying to catch them. So it's a very kind of bad situation. But things like specific things, yellow-crested macaw and hyacinth macaw, or yellow-crested cockatoo and the hyacinth macaw are some examples. But some of the marine fish we're really concerned about, like the blue tang, which is dory and stuff like that, because people want them and they're hard to get and we kill them. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap that up. I'm going to start talking about endangered species on the next one. See you guys later.